Hey. Welcome to episode 139 of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Freeman. I'm a speaker, an author, and a coach. I basically talk to people all day about turning challenges into opportunities. Speaking of challenges, do you ever find you have challenges being as productive as you want to be, getting your to-do list done in a day? I know I often find that. Today's guest has unique insight into this. You're going to be inspired. But first I'll leave you in suspense for just a second. See you back in a second.
Today's guest, Shoop.
See, I said I'd be back. Well, welcome back to Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. I'm still your host, Jason Freeman. I still have a speech impediment, and it's still a great day. Before I start to ramble, let me tell you about my amazing guest. Shoop is globally renowned as the Master of Concise Counsel. Over the course of his 3 decades plus sales and leadership career, he uncovered his passion for coaching and teaching. He leads a dynamic team of sales professionals as the national sales director for Axos Bank and invests the majority of his remaining time mentoring early stage speakers and entrepreneurs as they develop their craft. Any success or notoriety he experiences, he first credits to his relationship with God, then to his mentors, and finally to the success principles that he has studied, adopted, and freely shares with others. His current project, 39 Universal Principles, which everyone should know but likely don't, is a follow up to his two previous books, 52 Maxims for Living Your Life to the Max and The Death of Mediocrity. Please help me welcome Shoop.
Welcome.
Hey,
Hey,
welcome, Jay.
if I knew you were gonna read the whole thing, I would have taken some of the syllables out.
Thanks. Yeah. I'm sometimes better with single monosyllabic words. And saying that just illustrated why I'm better with one syllable words.
Good to see
So,
you.
so, so let's jump right in. We have a lot to cover.
Sure.
So, the last few times I've been around you, I've noticed how productive you are, and at the same time being social, like you're able to do many things at once. Was that always your experience of work? Were you just born like uber productive and ready to go? And
No, I don't think I came out of the womb with high productivity skills. I can tell you that for the majority of my young life, um, I was I would be considered far less than productive. Let's just put it mildly. I enjoy my free time, as you're aware. Um, Thankfully, I'm in a role that gives me some autonomy and freedom that allows me to pursue other interests as well. But productivity it really is a discipline. It's not so much doing a lot of things at the same time. It's being able to segment and compartmentalize and navigate with some fluidity between multiple tasks or responsibilities.
So it's not being able to do 10 things at once, like people sometimes think, huh?
Yeah, well, at least that's been my experience. I can't speak for everybody out there, but one thing that it's kind of I correlate it to, you know, that I'm a musician and play the drums, and um, there's a lot of things occurring at the same time: hands, feet, sometimes vocals, um, and all of those things working in a rhythm or in a sequence. And that's kind of how I equate my work life. Is I'm trying to find a rhythm and a sequence that I can adapt within, that works for me. And then when it comes to, as I mentioned, navigating in the personal side of my life, being able to integrate those ideas and principles. You know, we've talked before about my mentors, and I have a laundry list of them. And
You do.
one of my favorites, Jim Rohn, used to talk about disciplines and habits, and simple disciplines. He would say they're easy to do and they're easy to not do. And the key is you just have to choose, are you going to do it or not?
You have a maxim here, if I can find it.
Sure.
Maxim 17 from your book.
Look at how, wait, can you turn that book on its side so they can see how skinny it is too? It looks massive when you hold it up like that, but no, I like short, small, concise, easy to read, navigate, and digest and implement content. And that's what that book is.
So first of all, before I read the maxim,
Yeah.
why is short, easy to digest content important for people?
Well, again, in my experience, we have an endless, seemingly exhaustive set of distractions all day long, every day. And so sitting down to read a novel, you have to be fully dedicated and committed. Whereas you can grab that 52 maxims, you can read that whole book in under 40 minutes. But you know, my counsel is to grab one maxim and study it, digest it, and then figure out how you can apply it in whatever you're doing. That is, if you agree to it. You know, we talk about that in the book too. You know, there's this is not a one size fits all. Personal development is not one size fits all. Some things that work for you won't work for me, and likewise. You know, but there's some clues in there where you can test things, and that's really, again, my counsel and encouragement is test things for yourself. I say in the book, let your conclusions be a product of your own experience and testing, not just because somebody said, hey, go do this, you know, go time block, go make a to-do list, go lock yourself in a room and turn off all outside distractions, whatever. That may or may not work for you.
This is an important point, so important, because I've been in a place at certain times in my life, and where I go see a speaker who's successful in that chosen career, and I'm vigorously trying to absorb everything and thinking of how to apply it, and thinking that I should remodel my whole life because they are telling me what I should do.
Yeah. You're not alone. We all fall into the shiny object and what's working best in the present environment. And again, it may very well be, you just have to test it for yourself. Don't just rely on somebody's opinion of what's best for you. I mean, think about when we were kids. The last thing that we wanted to hear was somebody telling us how we should do a thing. Most likely our parents. It's
Mm.
just we're wired to want to do it independently in our own way. And so when a set of principles is presented to you, uh, test them to see if they align with your way and your method of thinking. Not just assume that they're going to be the magic pill that solves all of mankind's problems.
This is a huge nugget that you're pointing out to, but speaking of principles that work for you, Maxim 17 says it is often the small, seemingly unnoticeable disciplines that will materialize into your greatest victories.
Yeah.
So, what are some of your small, unnoticeable disciplines, Jay?
Well, one of the things that I mentioned in the book is a story about my daughter falling asleep in my arms and me often having to carry her up, the 15 to 20 steps to get from the lower floors to the upper floor. And when she was about 4 years old, I got to the top of the steps and I was very winded. And I was thinking, what the heck? I'm not even 40 years old. And I'm getting winded climbing a set of stairs. And so I was like, something has to change. And so the next day, I started doing a walk around my community, a 1 mile loop. And I can confidently say that that was the first day of now over a decade of doing it. And there's days that I miss, of course, and I travel, as you know, quite a bit. But that was a simple discipline of saying, I'm not comfortable with my present results. I'm going to make a change. And this is a habit that I can, again, as my mentor said, easy to do or easy to not do, relatively easy to do to get up and move. And so it's unnoticeable to anybody else unless you happen to be out at 5:45 or 6 a.m. when you see me out walking. But that amongst others, I have a regimen that I do every day. I refer to it as bookends. Our friend Darren Hardy in the Compound Effect taught this concept of having a set of non-negotiable things that you do in the AM and a set of non-negotiable things that you do in the PM to bookend your day. And my AM bookend includes prayer, meditation, hydration, the walk that I described, stretching, reading, and I do those things every day. My day doesn't feel the same if I miss a day. And so again, those are unnoticeable. I'm doing them before many people are even out of bed. And once those are under my belt, then I feel like my day is on the right track.
You say you've been doing the walking for 10 years?
I think it's more. So my daughter, if you go back to when my daughter was 4, she was born in 2002. So that would have been 2006. And last time I checked, it's 2023. Somebody do the quick math for me. What's 2023 from 2006? 17?
Oh, 17 years.
Yeah. So yeah, if you added up those miles, they don't seem like much when you're doing them, 20 minutes and your miles done. But over the course of 17 years, there's positive effects. And thankfully, I've still got more years ahead of me than I do behind me. It's open for debate, but we'll see.
It'd be fun sometime to calculate how many miles you've gone.
Yeah, maybe one of your viewers can figure out if it's 300 a year times 17 year. That's probably a pretty safe bet. It's probably more because I didn't miss 50 days out of a year, but you could do a round set of math there pretty quick to come up with a number. I could have walked to South Dakota and back a few times.
Yeah. Wish you would have.
Hey, once I visited you last year. I'll be back. We're going to see each other like in a month. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. I don't know if you've was Jason. I don't know if I've ever told you how much that meant to me. I was recovering from my ankle injury. I've never broken anything with my legs before, and it was a big deal. And you're like, all of a sudden, you're like, Jason, I'm coming out. Jason, we're going to the concert, and I'm like, but Jay, I have an ankle injury, and but Jason, we're going to the concert. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And you had fun, right?
I mean, yeah, it was amazing. It was
I don't know. You
one
had.
of the
I don't know if you were.
highlights of my summer.
Okay, good. One of the highlights of your summer. Okay, so you were just struggling for the words to speak to it, not a dramatic pause, making me think that you might not have had a good time. Because I know that your ankle was bugging you, climbing stairs was bugging you, but you powered through it, and hopefully it helped you heal faster.
Yeah, it definitely did. Sometimes my dramatic pause are just from my unusual speech cadence. Yeah,
I'm
can't tell all
familiar.
the time. So, who have your productive productivity mentors been throughout the year?
Um, I don't know if I could specifically pin productivity to any one mentor. You know, one of the most influential mentors in my life was Les Brown, and as you know, he's spent his entire lifetime encouraging, inspiring, and helping others, and especially those that are in the speaking world. And one thing that he said to me was, the best speakers make the fewest words go the farthest.
The
And
best
so,
speakers make the fewest words go the farthest.
yeah. And so that concept of the fewest words um, is is an aspect of productivity. How can we trim off the unnecessary pieces and make it more efficient and more direct and more penetrating with fewer words? And even though that's not a measurement of productivity from the perspective of getting more things done, but it is doing more with less. And I think that that's really the underlying principle. How do we leverage our knowledge, our skills, our talents, our abilities, and accomplish more without kind of the rat race, uh, insane effort that sometimes we just get in the way, as opposed to just allowing things to occur.
This even goes down to your this principle goes to your texts. Your texts. When I first met you, I was into long, elaborate texts, oftentimes, and really spending time on them, and your texts are often very simple and very to the point. And at first I was like, what? But but it gets the same job done that would have taken me 15 minutes. It takes you like less than a minute, and that's a major difference.
Yeah, and again, it's not for everybody. I've been accused or labeled over the course of my career, especially in leadership roles, of being too direct or seemingly curt. CURT, curt, where here's the answer, and there's not a lot of fluff around the front end or the back end. And if you don't know me intimately, you might not know that I lead with love and I care about you and I want you to like me and I want you to appreciate the information and the knowledge and the counsel. And then after knowing me, you understand that that's the clearest direct path to the result that we're attempting to accomplish.
Um, it just gets me thinking so much because so we all have the same 24 hours in a day, obviously. But it's so easy to spend even on work time working on stuff that doesn't get us precisely where we want to go. Dancing around what we really want to work.
Yeah.
Do you ever find that?
I do. Not only do I experience it in my own life, it's interesting that you brought this topic up because I was referring to a lesson that I learned. I don't know what year it would have been, but I believe it was Brian Tracy, and he asked this question about your EVE ratio, your education versus entertainment ratio, and the majority of the population, it's 95-5, meaning 95% of the time in entertainment and 5% in education. And he said, look, you don't have to uh, turn the thing upside down and all of a sudden only have 5% entertainment and 95% education, but just think about how much more efficient you would be if you could shift the scales a little bit, right? Maybe you go to 90-10 or the 80-20 rule, right? Where 80% of your output comes from 20% of your activity. It's like just making that shift into less entertainment or less things that pull you from what you have stated your goals to be. That assumes that you've created goals for yourself or created a plan. I mean, you and I both know that there is a significant portion of the population, not necessarily somebody tuning in here. Somebody tuning in here cares about their future, their life, their goals, and how to move them forward. You know, but eliminating distractions and spending more time focused on the things that pull you towards your goals is one of the easiest ways to increase your productivity. It doesn't have to be a dramatic overnight 0 to 60 kind of thing. It can be, I'm going to drop this, 30-minute show I've been binging, and I'm going to instead insert X, whatever X is for you. You know, for me, when it was writing the second book, it was every Monday night at 7 to 7:30, I committed to writing a page. It's like that's all I could allow in my bandwidth at the time is I'm just going to write a page. And sometimes that page didn't have that many words on it. And sometimes I'm like in a flow and all of a sudden I've got 3, 4, 5 pages. Does that mean I need to take the next 5 Mondays off? No, just keep showing up on Monday until the thing's done.
So this book came out of writing for half an hour, not a day, but a week.
Once a week, half an hour commitment. Now, again, there were times where I was kind of in a flow, right? Where I got more than a page. And then there were times where the grind to get that page done was there too. But yes, it was just here's the end goal, here's the steps required, and here's my commitment, and I'm going to stick to that commitment, regardless of the outcome in that particular 30 minutes. You know.
It reminds me of how far you've walked in the last 17 years.
Yeah.
So often when we think of the goals we want to create, we think of them and we're like, hey, I want to do this. But then in the next breath, we're like, oh, this is overwhelming. I can't. And then we talk ourselves out of what we just got excited about.
Yes, that's coming up in the next book that you mentioned, 39 Principles Everybody Should Know but Probably Don't. There's one called Lodi, the Law of Diminishing Intent. And that is when your enthusiasm for something wanes as more time elapses. And so the key is when you recognize that occurring is that you get back on track. You know, if I miss a Monday or if I miss a daily walk, I don't, again, I don't go crawl into the corner, pull the blankets over my head and say, I'm a failure. I'm like, I'm going to start tomorrow and get back on track.
And again, you make it so getting back in the game isn't overwhelming. You get back in the game by working on the book for half an hour, get back in the game by walking a mile.
That's right. Yeah. And when it comes to goals, the way I refer to that is the next logical step. Like, what is the next logical step? I don't have to take 20 steps. I don't have to take 50 steps. I don't have to take 2. Just what is the next logical step towards the accomplishment of this stated goal? And get after it.
Why do you think our brains want to do the 10 steps at once?
Because we want the result today. we don't want the result 10 or 17 years from now. We're wired to want it now. And so that's the you mentioned earlier, that's the dance. How do you keep that desire in check? How do you allow the law of gestation to work for you, right? Everything has a gestation period. I don't just think, hey, I want this thing and it appears in my reality today. The baby takes 9 months. I don't know, give me another gestation metaphor.
I'm in the Midwest. Crops take.
Yeah, you put the corn in the ground, and it takes how long?
Takes 3 or 4 months.
Yeah. So everything in nature has a gestation period, including the accomplishment of your goals. And the key is, are you able to do the next logical step as you're awaiting the baby to arrive, the goal to be accomplished? You hold the vision of it in your mind, you take the next logical step, whatever that is.
I wonder if we can be excited about wanting something now, wanting instant gratification, like now growing that part of, like a kid wants everything now, and in a way we don't outgrow that. But I wonder if we can maintain that excitement and honor that, and still honor that things gestate, that steps are required, that we'll have days where we don't walk the mile, but where we can get back to it the next day. Can we do both?
I think it is possible to do both. Again, it's a discipline, and it's taking advantage of momentum when it exists. Momentum can work for you or against you, and maintaining that enthusiasm for the thing that you say you want. Sometimes your goals change, right? The thing that you thought was a goal, after a while you pursue it and you're like, actually this isn't really for me, and then you recalibrate. But as far as maintaining enthusiasm towards those things and through the hard parts of accomplishment, it really takes focus, dedication, it takes commitment, and it takes really accountability. You and I have considered each other accountability partners over the course of our friendship, where when we say we want to do a thing and we check in with each other and say, how's that thing going? It's a little bit of kind of checks and balances, if you will, making sure that, hey, you said you were going to do it. What got in the way? And then what are you doing to get back on track if you're not keeping up with it? And then back to the energy, the excitement, or the enthusiasm. A lot of times it's just reminding yourself why you opted in to begin with, and sometimes it's taking a fresh look at what you've committed to. All of those things are important.
So asking not only what got in the way, but and I think we humans love that question, what got in the way, and we love to create stories and feel guilty and feel shame. But I love the follow-up question. What can you do to get back on track?
Yeah, back in the when you were referring to the Maxims, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but the line of responsibility where we talk about, we're not blaming or shaming or justifying our actions. We're just taking responsibility for that action and then taking the next logical step.
Hmm. You mentioned that momentum can work for you or against you. Please say more about that.
Yeah, well, I think we've all had experiences where um, you'll hear the expression, when it rains, it pours, where things just continue to appear as obstacles
Hmm.
in your life, and I can tell you, for me, that season was between July of 2007 and it seemed like it lasted forever, but really through December of 2009, I think, which for some people is a lifetime. But it was a season in which industry conditions were working against me. At least that's how it appeared or how it felt. Right? Things were not working out. It was in the middle of the Great Recession. You've heard it referred to before, and when one thing after another continues to show up, the tendency is to look at that and tap out, literally,
Hmm.
uncle, I can't take anymore. And then that's where, for me, calling on and relying upon my faith was the key component to stay in the game. And then again, what is the next logical step? Okay, first get up, you know, start there. Get up, get up out of bed and start working on what's next, And then if you continue down that path, the not only does the momentum of occurrences seem to pile up, but until you can reorient your mindset and
Hmm.
start changing your thoughts and your patterns, we talk about frequently, how your thoughts affect your feelings, how your feelings affect your actions and your vibration, and then ultimately that produces results. It's like, okay, what is this frequency in which you are vibrating, and what is it attracting into your world? Well, if you're again in the corner with the blanket over your head in misery and doom, thinking the world's out to get you, the odds are high that circumstances related to those thoughts are going to be what you experience. And the counter to that is, okay, I'm here, I'm breathing, my skills, talents, and abilities didn't leave with me during the Great Recession. I retained those. How can I use them and apply them in whatever is next? And then what's the next logical step? And I'm going to take that step and
So
build
so
momentum that
so
direction.
so a few great things here. Um, you said something about in 2007, 2008, industry conditions were working against me. But then you said at least that's how it appeared.
Yeah.
So why did you add that disclaimer?
Well, I think that if you think about perception as an intellectual faculty, right? How we see things, how we see the world. I look outside and I see partly sunny. Somebody else looks outside and sees partly cloudy. Same sky, different perception. So, what I mean when I'm qualifying, at least that's how it seemed. At that time, I literally thought my life was over. When you lose every piece of material things in your world, where you're just down to literally the shirt on your back, the tendency is to live from there, to act from there, and not see that maybe that was required. Maybe scorching the earth was required, financially scorching the earth in order to unearth new growth. Again, when we refer it back to nature, right? Sometimes that happens. Pruning has to occur. Or sometimes ripping the weeds out has to occur in order for things to grow. And thankfully, not only from a happy to be on the planet perspective and my longevity from that point to this point, which now we're talking about 2 decades, I couldn't imagine the great future that existed for me when I was in the middle of that season. You remember our friend Greg Reed in his book 3 Feet from Gold quoted the guy that used to run the Hershey Corporation. He said, "Never make a life-changing decision in a valley." It's like when you're in that valley, sometimes you just have to power through it with endurance until you can start to see, ascension out of it.
What would you say to someone who's walking through the valley and whose future to them looks like a pinhole right now?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that I would say is I feel you. I know. Yeah. I know what that's like. And I would say, find people in your world, even if it's one, that can believe in your recovery, whatever that looks like, in your endurance. Find support. Stay committed. Reach out. Raise your hand. My friend Les used to tell a story about how, as humans, right, when we take a hit, we tend to just kind of pull off the road, and we're not putting our hazards on, letting anybody know there's a problem, right? And we don't raise our hand. And he would say, I'm not asking for help because I'm weak. I'm asking for help to remain strong. So that's the part where ask for help, remain strong, and do the things that, again, the next logical step. And then when it comes to possibility, the way I would say it is that everything that occurred in the past, not to discount what occurred, it doesn't really affect what's possible for you in your future, right? It seems like it when you're in it, but the reality is your options, your possibilities, what's available to you is limitless. And sometimes it just takes somebody in your ear reminding you of that, whether it's me or Jason or anybody that you can lean on through tough times. I would encourage it, right? For me, it's my faith, it's prayer, it's friends, it's books. My mentor Jim Rohn, he talked about equating life and business like the seasons, right? Winter, spring, summer, and fall. If you're in a winter right now, just know that there is a spring coming. Stay in the game.
So it can, the past can be so vivid to us, and the painful events that happened, we can feel them so intensely, and it can be such, speaking of things that's like a productivity, that can be such a powerful magnet for energy. What are your thoughts on moving from there? I mean, you could, today in 2023, you could still be stuck reliving the emotions of 2007, 2008, and just
I kind of had a little flashback right there.
But a little flashback is different from that being a day-to-day
That's right.
day reality.
That's right.
let's just use you for example. How you could have gone down the path of reliving those awful days every day for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
How did you choose a different path? I mean, you're saying nuggets all along during the interview, but I want to ask the question again.
Yeah. Okay. So when we're talking about the how-to part of things, again, the what worked for me, so to speak, isn't necessarily going to work for everybody else, but there are some clues in there. You know, one of our mentors, I keep going back to them, and it's just because they've had such a influence on my life, and you and I, and anybody that's paying attention to this has a responsibility to share what we know with others so that we can help them through. I mean, that's basically why we're on the planet, right? So,
And as
uh,
a side, you're so good at that. You've
thank you.
studied so many mentors, and you're really wonderful at sharing their wisdom.
Thank you. I will receive that. There's no original thought out there, right? We're all just borrowing from everybody else. So, Bob Proctor used to teach a lesson on our intellectual faculties, right? So, as human beings, we have 6 intellectual faculties that separate us from all the other species on the planet. And one of them is the way that we use our memory. You know, if we look at the past and we use our memory to drudge up problems, issues, hurts, like if we're living there, then that's not really an appropriate use of our memory. Our appropriate use of memory would be to think about the times when things were working. Think about the times where we experienced joy and happiness and love, and then use the memory to bring those emotions into our daily experience. That's more of a tactical how to. It's like, how can I use my memory to support me, as opposed to living in those things that were in the past. And again, it's a discipline, it's a skill set, it takes work. The work that we're in the constant process of evolution over the course of our lifetimes. If you had a conversation with me about this 25 years ago, it might be a little bit different answer. But the reality is that it's a process, it's work, but it's worth it. It's the kind
Following
of
up
work that's
with
worth it.
what?
It's the kind of work that's worth it. In other words, the
It's
payoff is
the
worth it.
kind of work that's worth it.
Yeah.
Following up with what you said, it makes me think of I love to take photos to go around the country and take photos, and I could go any city and just say I'm going to look for all the bad stuff, all the ugly stuff, all the stuff that's not working, and I could find plenty of things to take pictures of, but I enjoy beauty. I enjoy architecture. I enjoy finding things that I love. So that's what I choose to focus on, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what you're saying about how we use our memories. It's
Yeah,
fast.
that's a great description in comparison to the photography piece, because for sure, in our world, it doesn't take you long to find something that you would classify as ugly and unacceptable, and uh, let's say less than desirable. And then contrast that with we live in a beautiful place on what did Bucky call it, spaceship Earth. And the key is, how do we live our best life, if you will, with the resources and the people and the opportunities that exist for us.
Speaking of living your best life, one of the very first things I knew about you when we met
Uh-oh.
that is your passion and your love for being a father.
Uh,
Tell us more about what has being a father brought to your life.
oh my gosh. Well, for those of you that are fathers, and Father's Day is coming up in a couple weeks, so if my daughter watches this, just a friendly reminder. When, yeah, it's, it changes your perspective. I mean, you hear all the cliche part of things like your life's never the same, and really, where the most granular shift is that you're no longer responsible only for you. And when you have that experience, it just changes the lens in which you look at things. And then the rewards that come along with that is, um, it might seem even counterintuitive, but there's a sense of humility that comes along with that. And many of us males could use a dose of humility in our lifetime sometimes, and I'm speaking 100% from experience in my life. And when I the opportunities that exist in the education and the training and the discipline and the loving and the nurturing and the growing. I don't know. I don't have a son, so I don't know what it's like with boys, but with a daughter, there's this extra delicate nature where everything I want to do to support her includes that protection and that preservation of innocence and love and kindness and compassion. And I'm thankful in that my daughter not only amazing, and this is not just dad gloating about daughter, but she's just a solid citizen. She's talented. She's like a little grandma in a kid's body. She's got this old soul. She loves vintage, retro, everything. And yeah, it's just one of my favorite people on the planet.
I'm so glad I asked. That was so powerful to hear how you answered that thing.
Yeah, I thought we're
Thank
talking
you.
about productivity. Let's talk about some productivity tactics with your daughters. How about that? So when my daughter was starting high school, she used to get a $5 a week allowance. And one of the things I knew about high school is that my daughter was going to be brainwashed at some stage. So I figured I would be the one doing the brainwashing. So I devised this plan. I devised this plan where she could increase her allowance. It would double. So we called it an allowance booster if she completed a task prior to the end of the week. And this task was, I would give her, let's say, a short motivational video or a piece of scripture or an image or an article. And her task was to read it, view it, watch it, do whatever. And then she had to answer 3 questions. What's the theme? Like, what are they trying to communicate in this message? What's the underlying lesson within it? And then how can you apply it in your life? And she had to write this down on a 3x5 card. So here's the title. Here's what they're trying to communicate. Here's the lesson, and here's how I can apply it in my life. And then if she did that, then she would double her allowance. So the 5 would go to 10. And then when she became a junior, the 10 went to 20. And now I've got this treasure of 4 years and however many weeks that she completed the task of these messages where I wouldn't say I tricked her, but I definitely leveraged the desire to have walking around money with, how can I brainwash her with content that's going to serve her. And I mean, you already know, as a senior in high school, which she was a senior in COVID years, so you can imagine the challenges there. But she was the yearbook editor. She was a cheer captain. She was the one of the homecoming corps. I mean, like all of these things I attribute to, not just being a great dad with regards to plans, but also being able to instill leadership and productivity qualities within her that she's been able to take throughout her now life, which is hard to believe she's going to be 21 in November. Can you believe that, Jason?
Oh my God, no, I cannot.
When you guys met, she was 10.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So, you've dedicated yourself to going on more adventures in the last few years, and I don't want you to get into why your year starts at a different time than everyone else's does.
Okay.
But
I won't.
actually, tell that just briefly, because now I'm curious. I can't remember the answer.
Okay, no problem. So what Jason's referring to is I consider March 1st my New Year's Day. And that's generally because January and February suck when it comes to most things anyway. I don't know. There's a few good things in there. Some people might like snow
You
and winter and
live
whatever.
in San Diego County, Jay. Don't be talking about how January and February suck.
Okay, so anyway, so that's been my experience. So every year I would schedule an annual trip around the second or third week of February and use that as goal planning for the future and to create a theme, an overarching theme for my life for the next year. And this particular theme this year was increasing the intensity and frequency of new experiences. So that was my theme for 2023, March 1 through March 1, 2024. And then as an offshoot to that, I decided this year that I was going to visit cities in the United States that I've never been to before and combine them around my work life, so, arriving a day sooner than, let's say, if there's a conference, and then leaving a day later so that I could experience the culture of the city. So yeah, so far this year, I just got back from Boise. I was as you know, I visited you in South Dakota last year. This year, I've already been to San Antonio. I've been to Huntsville, Alabama. I've been to Nashville, and coming soon to a trip near Jason in the end of July. We're going to be in Branson, Missouri. So yeah, that's I'm expecting it to be an adventure.
So how are you finding these new experiences enhance your life when you get back to your regular routine in your work life?
Yeah, it's twofold. There's the cultural experience, right? Because as you mentioned, I live, I wouldn't say in a bubble, but sunny and 75 is pretty much the consistent San Diego. We're dealing with May gray and June gloom, of course, but generally from a weather perspective, from a culture perspective, the beach life, all of these things are kind of part of my wiring. And then when I'm visiting some other place, the music is different. The people are different, sometimes in positive ways, sometimes in less than positive ways. The food is different. The weather is different. Like all these things are just experiences. And you and I have talked about before, we have a different definition of moment. People say live in the moment and whatever. My definition of moment is a sequence of events in a unspecified capsule of time. It might be like this, or it might be a day, whatever. That's the moment for me. And so I'm trying to, again, as I mentioned, increase the intensity and the frequency. So not only visiting places often, but while I'm there, doing something I might not otherwise do. So for example, in Boise, I met with a friend. Actually, I had two friends meet together, and we got on those scooters, the motorized scooters, and we cruised along the Greenbelt in the Boise River on these scooters, and just had an amazing time.
You mean like scooters, you're standing on them?
Yeah, you're standing on them, but they got power, and these things have power. They do like 30 miles an hour or something. So
No way.
yeah, it's but anyways, that's just an example of and an experience that I had not had before, that was a lot of fun, and I'm really glad that I did it.
What would you say to as concise counsel to someone who's bored with their routine right now about spacing making things just a little more exciting, a lot more exciting?
Yeah, well, both can work. You can go full on extreme if you want to bungee jump or parasail or do something crazy to shake up your world. More power to you. I'd say go get it. But yeah,
Crowd surf.
what do you say? Oh, crowd surf. We're not telling that story.
No.
Yeah, but I think for most of us, that the idea of adding something more adventurous, or like you said, spicing things up, uh, breaking a routine, sometimes can be really life changing. It doesn't have to be life changing, but just being willing to try something new and different. And if it's too scary to do on your own, do it with a friend. For me, I like to travel alone. As you know, I've had some crazy experiences in travel and whatnot, and I wouldn't trade them for the world.
Oh, we have one question from Tiffany. What would you suggest for someone living alone, poor and in
Mm,
isolation, to live
yeah,
in a full new moment? Wow,
wow.
great question.
That is a great question. Not only is it a great question, but when I think of that choice of words, alone and isolation, I don't like those words. Frankly, if I had an option to never use those words again, I would. If that's your present experience, my encouragement would be, again, it doesn't have to be something major, but wherever you are, whatever geography you live within, whatever state, region, whatever, I would think through what interests you, and is there anybody else on the planet that has a similar interest? And then I would
Mm.
attempt to connect. We're not meant to live in isolation, and I can tell you, I'm a person that likes my alone time. But I think there's a difference between lonesome and lonely. Like, I think there's a discernible difference between them. And so by connecting with others that have either similar interests, or it can be as simple as connecting with somebody like Jason or myself. We're both very accessible guys. We're happy to have a conversation with you and dig into to see if there's undiscovered gold in there, interests that you have that you can start to display and experience. I had a back in my coaching days, I had a young guy that was uh, as a high schooler, was a photographer, and when he got into his working life, he just kind of ditched photography. And then one day he showed me some of his work, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're really skilled. And we were able to connect him with somebody that could help him expand on his talent in photography. And he ultimately turned it into a business and left his 9 to 5 job or whatever. And I'm not going to say that's the extreme. Maybe that's not it. But one of the key components was connecting with somebody else who shared a similar interest. And I think we're wired to be in community, whatever that community looks like for you, whether it's a new sport, the pickleball is all the rage, or whether it's a community like church, any place where you can plug in and find somebody that shares similar interests that you can have a conversation with. Like Jason and I, we both love having conversations with entrepreneurs. We love helping speakers develop their craft. We love sharing these ideas, and find a Jason in your world that you can share these experiences with.
And along with this, we're wrapping up pretty soon here, but along with this, it's important to realize that as we look for people to befriend and stuff, we don't have to have everything in common to
Yeah.
enjoy each other and be each other's friends. Like you and I, Jay, we do not have everything in common at all, but friendship doesn't requires sameness. It requires people who are willing to be authentic and share mutual interests.
Yeah, or like our friend David Gruder says, and treasure the differences. That's one of the things that's
Treasure the
often,
differences.
yeah, that's one of the things that's often missing, right? So there's a lot of division in our world because they're different. People are different. Things are different. They're not the same as me. And it's like, okay, do you want to be in the matrix where everybody's the same? It's like, no, but how do you treasure the differences, right? So I appreciate the things and the thoughts and the who you are as a person, and your views may be different than mine, and I seek where's common ground, where are the things that we do
Mm.
align on that we can use and magnify those and just treasure the differences.
You treasure treasure the differences. And different note, Craig. May I ask, do you purposely say your adventure goes close to your limits?
Hmm, what an interesting question. Let me make sure I understood it correctly. Do you purposely set your adventure goals close to your limits? Well, there's a part of me that wants to get triggered by that question. Like I'm wrestling with it right now. Like, are you challenging me? Is that the way I'm framing the question? That I'm not willing to set an adventurous goal well beyond my limits? I don't know. I'm going to have to explore that. I can tell you that there are times where my adventure goals have been not only well beyond my limits, but beyond the limits of others, including the law. So I'm not sure if it's purposeful, but it's definitely one path forward.
So I ask each of my guests this, and I asked you this the first time we spoke, and I'll ask you it again.
Hmm.
What does doing your imperfect best mean to you, Jay Shoop?
What does doing my imperfect best mean to me?
Jay Shoop.
Hey, shoot. Well, I would say being willing to have an experience without being tied to whether or not that experience produces a perfect result or not.
Mm.
So I remember, as a young man being athletic and having some natural talent around athletic things, tennis, baseball, uh, golf. And then somebody took me water skiing, and I just expected that my skill, my athletic innate talent would enable me just to jump on the water ski and, you know, cruise on down the line behind that boat. And I quickly learned that it's a acquired skill. It's not an automatic skill. But I was willing to get in the water and get on the skis and keep going until I got up. And that's really it. Just a willingness to be okay with it not being perfect the first time, and maybe not ever, but giving it your best effort.
Love it. Love it. So if people want to continue a conversation with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, they can hit me up directly here on Facebook or send me a private message or my email address, the easiest email address on the planet, the letter J, S-H-O-O-P, jshoop at jshoop.com.
J. Oh, say it one more time. It's easy, but I will repeat around. So
Okay.
say it again.
JSHOOP. So jshoop at jshoop.com. Just think of the J with the A and the Y not only being silent, but being invisible. JSHOOP at jshoop.com.
Cool. Well, thanks so much, my friend. It's been great to talk with you, and it's great to see you.
Yeah, can't wait to see you next month.
Yeah, we'll have fun. Oh, I hope that this conversation, I hope you got out of it some things that you enjoy, whether it gives you new questions to consider, or maybe even you heard say something and you're like, I don't believe that. That's not a good fit for me. Either way, either by saying yes, I agree, and incorporating a new idea, or by hearing something that isn't a good fit, it helps us learn more well about what we value, helps us grow. So thanks for tuning in, and whether you're tuning in live or later, and thanks for being you. Next week, my guest is... Oops. That's for next week. Next week, my guest is Shiloh Olag, and I can tell her I interviewed her on Monday, pre-recorded, and it's a great interview. I've known Shiloh since college, and I learned a whole bunch of things, and she inspired me and challenged me to be better during the interview. So please tune in. Until next time, thanks for being you, and you are the best. See you next week.